Hey guys, it's Mrs. Montague here. In this video, I am going to share as briefly as I can how to use Google Forms. So the first thing that you'll want to do is go to forms.google.com, and that will take you to the Forms page where you can create a blank form, a blank quiz, use any of these templates that they have, or open any of your previously used forms. If you're on your drive, you can also open a new form or create a new form rather by clicking on your new button, going down to more, and then clicking on Google Forms right here. So that will create a new Google form for you. So as you can see here, I have just created a blank Google form. The first thing I usually do is give my form a title. So I'll say this is my Google form sample because that's what we're doing here. What I usually do is click where it says untitled form up here just to make my title update, which means that this will be easier for me to find in my drive later. So you can give your form a description here. And that can be like instructions for completing the form, any additional information that you might want to get out about the form, etc. So any kind of description you can think of, you can put in as well. So up here at the top, I'm going to show you these options first. You can customize your theme. So when you click on that, you get this sidebar over here where you can choose a header. So if I click on that, they have all of these built-in headers that you can use. You can upload your own header, or you can use a header from your existing photos folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this one and insert that theme so you guys can see what happens. So that will give me my header right here, and then you'll see that my color options changed to match the theme, so I can pick whichever color I think works best with what I'm doing. Or you can use this little plus button to select your own color. So let me move this to the side a little bit so you can see you can select from all the different colors what you want. If you go down a little bit more, you can change the background as well. So that changes your background color slightly. You can also change your font style. They've only got 4 to choose from, so it is pretty limited, but you can make it decorative, formal, playful, or just keep it basic. So then that pretty much concludes our theme customization options. This right here will give you a sample of your Google form. Let me move me back over here. So if you click on that, it will give you a preview. So that will be what the form looks like for people when you send it out to them. And then our settings right here is very important. I'm going to go through each part of this settings menu. So if you want to automatically collect email addresses of the people who are replying to your form, you can check this box. And you can also choose to send response receipts. So anyone that fills out the form will get an email back verifying that their answers have been submitted via that response receipt. If you're doing a form where you're trying to get candid, honest feedback from people, it might be best to not collect the email addresses just to keep the form anonymous so you get that really good feedback that you're looking for. You can also require users to be Cherokee County Public Schools users, or you can uncheck that and open it to the entire internet, whoever you send it out to. You can also limit to one response. So that means that one person gets one response, and they can't do like 5 or 6 different responses to the form. So it just depends. If you're getting information from people where they might have to fill the form out more than once, you'll want to not limit to one response. You can also see down here, you can set what respondents are able to do, which is they can edit their responses after they submit the form. So they might have realized they put something in incorrectly and want to go back and change that. So that will let them go in and edit. You can also make sure that your respondents can see the summary charts and text responses from people. So if you want to maybe discuss the responses on the form with a group of people that responded, or if you want to discuss with your class after they fill out the form, you can make sure that they are able to see the summary and text responses that you get off of the form. You can also make your form a presentation type tool. So you can show a progress bar, which will let people know how far they've gotten through the form if you've got a longer form. You can choose to shuffle the question order. So maybe if you're using this as a quiz or an assessment, it will be a different order of questions for each person. So they can't like cheat off of each other if they're sitting in a classroom environment. You can also link to submit another response for anyone who wants their form to be able to have multiple responses from the same person. You can also type in your own confirmation message here that will be sent to response receipt people. And if you want to make your form a quiz, you can toggle this switch on here under the quizzes tab in settings, and that will give you some additional options here. So in locked mode, that means that anyone who's filling this quiz form out will not be able to open new tabs or view other information on their Chromebooks to try and cut down on cheating. And then you can also designate how you want to release the grade. So the quizzes will grade automatically for you as long as it's like multiple choice. Of course, it can't grade a short answer or a long answer question, but anything multiple choice or check boxes or things like that, you can grade. So you can have it automatically give students their results when they submit, or you can choose that you want to manually review each quiz and then send that information back later. Okay, and then down here you can decide what respondents are able to see. They can see questions that they missed, they can see correct answers on questions that they may have missed, and they can also see how many points each question is worth. So those are our basic settings. I'm going to turn off quiz for right now. Just so we can go through a little bit more of how these forms work. Of course, up here you've got your send button. So if I click that, that is going to send the Google form out to whoever I designate here in the email column. You can also get the link to your form, or you can get an embed code for your form if you want to put it on a website or something like that. So you can include a message with your form, and you can also choose whether or not you want to include the form within the body of the email, which you can or don't have to. It's up to you. What I do want to note here is this Add Collaborators button. So that's different than sharing it so people can take the form or take the survey. Adding collaborators means that you're adding somebody that can go in and edit questions or add questions or help you work on the form. So if you click on Add Collaborators, it's going to take you to a little bit different looking of a window, which is the share settings that you're more familiar with seeing. And from here, you can invite people to collaborate on the form and be able to edit that form with you. So I'm going to cancel out of that. This little 3 dots over here on the right side is called a hamburger. So you can undo what you've just done on the form. You can make a copy of your whole form. So you can move your entire form to the trash can. You can get a link to your form. You can print your form. You can also find another spot to add collaborators here. And a few other things that you can do from this hamburger location. So mostly you're probably going to be looking at this Add Collaborators or maybe making a copy of those forms. All right, so let's jump into the actual questions here. So I'm going to move myself to the top so you guys can see a little bit better. So you can see here that I've got one default question already built in when I created the form. And this one is set to be a multiple choice question. So I can put in additional options here. And you can see as I click, it's adding more and more options for me. Down here, you can select to duplicate the question. You can also select to delete the question. This delete button only deletes the question, not the entire form. You can also designate whether or not a question is required. So right now this question is not required. When I click on that toggle, now that means it's a required question and they have to have an answer filled in before they're allowed to submit the form. You can see our 3 dots down here give us some additional options. So you can add a description to your question. And there are also these other options that you see as well. Now, these other options beyond description are going to change depending on what type of question you select. So for the multiple choice question, you can go to a certain section of the form based on the answer they submit, or you can shuffle the option order. So again, if you're using this as a quiz or an assessment, students won't be able to kind of cheat off one another by seeing that, oh, they've got this question with all these options, but mine look different than that. So that's an option there. So the other question types you have are short answer or paragraph. So that just gives you a little text response you can put in. You've also got the option of doing checkboxes if you've got more than one correct answer. You can do a drop-down menu so you don't overwhelm people with responses. You can upload files from your drive. You can create a linear scale, so like give something a rating on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. You can do a multiple choice grid, which I have never used personally, but I think this works like matching. Or you can do a checkbox grid, which is the same thing as the multiple choice grid, but with multiple responses available. You can also have them input a date or have them input a time. And so you can see if I click on my 3 dots down here at the bottom of this question, it's asking me if I want them to put in a time or if I want to put in a duration. So you can say that the time currently is 2:14, or you could put in a duration. So let's say this video lasted for 10 minutes. Okay, so something like that. So you look at the additional options that you have down here. I'm going to change this back to a multiple choice, and I accidentally selected description, which I don't need, and I'm just going to add a few options here for our next step. Okay, so I wanted to just briefly show you what the difference is if I make this into a quiz. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my quiz on and save that in my settings. So now you can see down here that I've suddenly got this answer key option and a point assignment at the bottom. So if I click on the answer key, it asks me which of these answers is correct. So I'm going to say, just for instance, option 2 is going to be the correct answer. And I want this question to be worth 5 points. So you can make that point assignment whatever you want. It can be 1 point, or it can be 20 points, or 100 points. Okay, and you can also add answer feedback. So maybe if you have a student that selects the right answer, you can reinforce why that was the right answer. Or if a student selects the wrong answer, you can give them some feedback on why that answer was incorrect. And that will show to any student who submits their answers for that question. So once I'm click done there, you can see that I now have a little green check mark by my option 2, which I've selected as the correct answer. So if I had this form auto grading for me, if a student selected option 2, they would get 5 points for that correct answer. So you can see here too that we've got this little panel right next to the question on the left side that has all these different options. So this little plus button adds a question. So it will add another just default question down here. I can also import questions. So if I've got questions on a form that I've already created, I can import questions from those forms. And I also have the option to add a title and description. So I do have this box up here where it says Google Form Sample is my title and description box. If I click on that again, I'll get another title and description box down here. You can also insert images into your form. You can upload in all of these different ways to try and find an image that you might want to include. You can also insert YouTube videos. So you can search YouTube for videos here with general search terms, or if you have the URL of the YouTube video, you can paste that here and insert that video into your form. And then the last option is to add a section. So again, if I click on adding a section, you can see this now becomes section 1 of 2. And then if you scroll down, I now have another section 2 of 2 that includes another title and description block underneath it. So to give you a little bit better of an example of that section, how that works. So this pacing guide form that I created earlier this year has 16 sections in it. So the way that I've created it is that you input your basic information in the first section, and then you move on to section 2, which is your unit number 1 information. If you go down to the very, very bottom of unit number 1, the very last question asks you if you have a unit number 2. Now, when I click on this question, you can see if you select yes, that you have a unit number 2, it's going to send you to section 3 of the form, which is for unit number 2. If you select no, you don't have a unit number 2, it will take you to the spot where you can submit the form because I don't need any further information from you. So that's kind of how sections work. You can put in these questions that kind of put people on the right path depending on how they answer the question. So it goes through and each section has that question at the end. So when you get to unit 3, same thing. If you've got a unit number 3, it will send you to that section if you say yes. If you say no, again, you're going to submit that form. So that's how sections work. Back to our sample form. I want to also draw your attention to the responses that you've got here. So you can see I've got a toggle switch on the responses tab. Currently, this form is accepting responses. So if I were to send this form out, I could get responses back. If I toggle this switch off, it says I'm not accepting responses. And I can put a message in here as to why I'm no longer accepting responses. You can also generate a spreadsheet based on the responses that you get. And that will just be like any other spreadsheet. It's linked to the Google form. So if you create and generate that spreadsheet and then say get like 10 or 12 more answers on your form after you've already created the spreadsheet, they will populate automatically into that spreadsheet because they're tied together. Our additional options under the hamburger over here, you can get email notifications. So if somebody's filled the form out and you want to get notified whenever you get a response to your form, you can turn on those email notifications. You can also select a response destination, so send the responses to a certain spot. You can also download it as a Microsoft Excel file, or you can delete all of the responses out of your form if you realize maybe you made a mistake and have to send it out again. You can delete all the responses, fix what needs to be fixed, and then resend it with the correct info. I did want to also show you, so for our Sweet 16 bracket voting for the March Madness, if I click on my responses tab over here, so now that I do have responses on this form, you can see a summary of all the responses that you've gotten. You can see the question by question breakdown of the responses that you've gotten, or you can see individual responses. So I've got 54 responses on this form, so I can see all 54 individual responses. So if I click on this spreadsheet button, it's going to ask me to create a new spreadsheet, or I can select an existing spreadsheet. I'm going to click on create new, and you'll see that this will open a new Google spreadsheet, and it will have all of my responses recorded here. Now you might have to do some formatting. You can see that everything's kind of overlapping in these columns, but it timestamps all of them, and this is an anonymous form, so it's not giving me a column for their email addresses or anything like that that it has created. But one thing I really do like about these Google Forms, so if I go to my summary of responses, it gives me a graphic of the responses that I've gotten, so I can easily see the data related to the questions on my form. So I love Google Forms. I've sent out a lot of forms and created a lot of forms. I think they're a great tool, especially in this time when we're doing a lot of virtual learning. This might be a great assessment tool or a great way to just have students to submit answers that you need. So please absolutely let me know if you've got any questions about how to get your Google Forms going, how to send them out, anything like that. I would be happy to help.